friends, welcome back. It's Casey. We're going to do another spread in the Pocky Art Journal today. I've got my pages gessoed, and this is our color palette for today. It's pretty monochromatic. Monochromatic palettes really present some interesting challenges. You can't really use color to make things stand out, so you have to use other techniques. I'm just starting with my Liquitex Basics, and this color is called Parchment. I wanted something very neutral to start out with. Not quite in the color palette, but that lightest color in the color palette. This is a lighter version of that. So I used my baby wipe to just spread it around. I didn't really want it very thick or opaque because I'm using my alcohol markers, and I wasn't quite sure how they would go on thick paint. So I just did the thinnest layer of paint that I could while still making some color and covering the gesso. So I'm starting with this yellow. It's really hard to see on camera, but I am just making some lines. I'm doing something called neurographic drawing, which is basically you just do some lines, some scribbles, and then wherever the lines intersect, you kind of connect them and make those points thicker. So you can see here where I'm making the connections stand out more. And I'm going to do this with 3 different colors. I started with the lightest color in the color palette, and then I moved to the next color, and I'll move to the one after that next. I wanted something just kind of interesting as the background. I do like neurographic drawing quite a bit. I've never done it actually in color. I've only done it in black. And there are YouTube videos all over showing you how to do it. But it's very simple, and a lot of people will do it and then they'll color in all of the white space in between, and it's kind of really neat. I have done that before where I've colored in some of the spaces. That's not what I'm going to do here. I just kind of wanted the lines in the background. I really like the idea of going from lighter to darker and doing the same sort of pattern. It creates some depth. Not as much as I wanted to with this particular color scheme and technique, but it's got some of it there. Now I found these seed pods when I was cleaning up and doing some yard work, and they were really interesting. I like the shapes and I like the texture. So I collected them and I thought I would use them in a piece of art, and this seems like a really good opportunity to do so because of the colors. I wanted something in the darker 2 colors in the color palette to go over the lighter colors in the background. So now I'm just sketching, getting the outlines and checking to make sure the proportions are right and it's not going to be too big or too small on the page. So now I'm taking my paints, and again I'm using Liquitex Basics, and this piece of paper is a piece of mixed media paper, and I'm not sure whether it's the paper or the paints. I kind of think it's more the paints than the paper, but I had a hard time getting it to move. It would kind of just stick there and not really flow. I am more used to using fluid acrylics, and I honestly like them better for this purpose. I considered using watercolor to get this done, but I really wanted more saturation than what my watercolors would provide. I just have a really cheap Artist Loft watercolor set. I do intend to get better watercolors soon. Honestly, I had gone with a cheap set. I had expensive watercolors in tubes, and I didn't use them very much, and I ended up giving them to a friend. And then when I started art journaling, I thought, oh, I could use some more watercolors, but because it's a journal and it's not anything I'm going to show or put in a gallery, I thought, oh, I can just buy the cheapest watercolors and that'll be fine. And for a while it was. I mean, there's nothing wrong with cheap watercolors. Do whatever. But I really do want more pigment in the colors than what I'm getting with the Artist Loft. I might keep the Artist Loft anyway, because for backgrounds and things where I don't want as much color, where it needs to be more washed out, those will work really well. I can get some opaque color with the Artist Loft, but not really what I'm going for. I am more of an acrylic painter than a watercolor painter, so I haven't used a whole lot of watercolors. I'm kind of interested to try a bunch of different kinds and see just how they go. And I'm going to make a confession here. This is my second video that I'm shooting this week. I did film another video yesterday, and I did a video on creating art with just basic everyday household supplies in case someone doesn't have art supplies and they want to start making art. Just normal things around the house, no paints, no markers, just pen, pencil, and then some papers that you can find around your home. And I did create a piece, and I got the video done, and I was all proud of myself, but the more I looked at the finished piece, the more I didn't like it. I thought it looked really childish and amateur, which, you know, this video was meant for very beginner artists who haven't really done art before, so that's fine. But I kind of got in my head about it, and I thought, oh, this isn't going to be good, and I better film another video because I just can't publish this. And I'm still kind of on the fence about whether to keep it or whether to trash it. I do like the concept, and I want to do another video with that particular subject, but I'd like to have a better outcome with it. And that just goes to show you that, you know, even people who've been doing art for a really long time second guess themselves and create things that they aren't happy with at the end and get in their heads about what other people are going to think about it. And I've done a lot of work trying really hard not to get in my head and care what people think about my art, but I don't know, maybe it's just part of being an artist to begin with. There's always kind of that insecurity there, even when you think, oh, I don't care what people think of my art. You really kind of do. So if that's what's holding you back from doing art or showing people your art or just putting it out there, it's something we all go through, and you just have to kind of hold your breath and go for it. Honestly, if I put that video out there, I'm sure people would be just fine with it. A lot of times people like things that you hate and hate things that you like. Art is so subjective that way. But what it comes down to is I'm not really happy with the end result. And I don't want to put something out there that I personally feel just meh about. Speaking of feeling meh, this spread I really kind of had a hard time with. I really wasn't sure until the very end that it was going to turn out, specifically because of the monochromatic palette. You'll see a little bit later, but everything kind of just blended together and got lost. And I wasn't sure I would be able to save it. Which of course had me panicking, because this is the second video of the week and I don't have any more days to make any more videos because it's Friday. But it was about at this point that I thought, you know what? I do a lot of spreads. And there's often points in the spread where I think, oh, this is terrible. This isn't going to turn out. I'm going to have to do this all over again. But I keep working at it and I make it work. And in the end, it turns out just fine. So I had to remind myself of that. It can be really easy to get discouraged and frustrated. But persistence is definitely the key when it comes to art. And probably life in general. I'm only using 3 colors. I've got the parchment, and I have a brown and a black. I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. I don't often do realism drawings, and especially things from life where I'm looking at something and trying to draw it, but every once in a while I do, just so I know I can. And I do like the way it turns out in the end. But it can be a tedious process. Sometimes I just don't have patience for it. Okay, here you can see where the seed pods got really lost in the background. So I'm taking a piece of scrapbook paper and I'm going to do some collage in the hopes that the seed pods won't get lost. That's a little better. But it's still not quite enough. It's still too busy in the background. And so I'm going to take my stamp. It's got writing on it. It doesn't actually say anything, it just looks like writing. And I'm going to push some of these lines into the background and add more uniformity for the color. And once I have this all dry, I'm going to darken the background even more so that the scrapbook paper stands out. I have such a hard time recalling words. Oh, it's kind of ridiculous. I'm just smudging it on with my finger, which honestly I liked a little too much. I was never one for finger painting when I was little, but I do kind of enjoy getting my hands in the paint now that I'm older. So now that we have the background more as background, then putting the scrapbook paper and then the seed pods over the top definitely helps bring the seed pods into focus. Now here I couldn't quite remember how I had put those, which one was in front, so I only glued the bottom part of that square down so that I could stick that rectangle behind if I wanted to. To be honest with you, when I went back and watched the video, I had originally put the rectangle on the bottom, and I wish I had remembered I had done that because I kind of liked it better. But oh well, what are you gonna do? My journal is getting pretty thick. I'm almost halfway through the pages. I put way too many signatures in it, and I'm having to clip them now to even keep them open. But when I glue things on the page, especially on that left-hand side, they don't want to stick down because the pages are so warped. I had a hard time deciding whether I wanted to put that one on the right side or the left side of the page. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to add something else. I thought something else would be too busy. At this point, I really wasn't sure what I was doing or where this was going. Now it's still kind of blending in too much, so I'm taking ink pen and outlining. I started with my micron pen, but I really have a hard time with the microns getting them to mark over other media. So I'm using this other brand of pen I have. I'm not even sure what it is. Let's see. It's Two Hands Pigment Liner. It's a waterproof pigment ink. I do like these a lot. They have really good ink in them, but they tend to dry out more than the micron. So I got 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So now I'm taking my Stabilo pencil and doing even more shadow in certain places. I really wanted to make this pop off the background. And again, when you have a monochromatic color palette, you can't use color to make things pop off the page. So I'm doing shadow instead. And this is just my water brush. I did not buy any of my water brushes, by the way. They came with other things that I bought. This one, I think, came with my gelatos. I use them only because I don't really have watercolor brushes. When I get some better watercolors, I'll probably buy a couple of watercolor brushes. Now I'm using my micron to just outline and kind of make all the stems and everything crisper. I wanted to bring those seed pods more into focus. This is the point where I thought, oh, finally, this is coming together. Might not be a total loss after all. And I figured I was pretty much finished. If I added anything else, it was going to just be too busy. So now it's time to add my sentiment. I love these inspirational books. You really find some good quotes in them. Now, strictly speaking, the text isn't in the color palette. It's a little bit pink rather than orange, but I really didn't care. It's close enough. Not everything has to be perfect, and that's honestly what the quote says. It says, "Beauty lies within imperfection." I really thought that was kind of my theme for the week. Sometimes I ink the edges of my things that I glue in, and sometimes I don't. In this case, I really felt like it needed some grounding. I was happy to find a quote that I could split between the two pages. Fill some of that space without overwhelming the picture. And it's done. Finished product. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.